Hello! I'm glad you joined me today for the Godly Place story, The Faces of Easter. This story is usually told each week during Lent, and every week the story builds on what has already been told. And a very special part of the story is the wondering that happens at the end, where the children are invited to go throughout the room and choose items that go along with each panel which is presented in the story. I'm sorry that we're not all together or with children for you to see this, but I'd like to share this with you. In the beginning, the baby was born. God chose Mary to be the mother of God, and the Word was born a wordless child. Mother Mary and Father Joseph kept the baby warm. They held the baby close. They gave the baby everything he needed to grow. The baby grew and became a child. When he was about 12 years old, he joined his family, traveling from Nazareth to the great city of Jerusalem to celebrate one of the high holy days. They traveled with many people from their village. When the celebration was done, they headed back. Mary and Joseph were traveling, and suddenly they realized that Jesus was not with them. They thought that he was traveling with some of the other children from the village, but they could not find him. They hurried back to Jerusalem, and they searched the long and narrow streets. They searched the marketplace. They searched where they had spent the night, but they could not find him. They searched for 3 days and 3 nights, until finally they searched the great temple, and there they found Jesus. Jesus was talking with the priests. They were listening to what Jesus had to say because he knew so much, and Jesus was listening to what they had to say because he wanted to learn more. When Mary and Joseph said, "Why did you do this?" Jesus answered something very strange. "Didn't you know I would be in my Father's house?" Mary and Joseph didn't understand. Their house was back in Nazareth. They didn't understand what he meant, but they did not forget. Jesus grew and became a man. When he was about 30 years old, he went down to the river Jordan because his cousin John was baptizing people there. Do you see John? This is the back of his head. He was a wild man. Jesus waded into the river and came face to face with John and said, "Baptize me." John looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. And he realized. He said, "I cannot baptize you. You are the one we have been waiting for, the Messiah. You should baptize me." And Jesus said, "It has been told that you would prepare the way for me. Baptize me." Jesus went under the dark and chaotic water. And when John brought him back out, there were people there who said they saw a dove come close to where Jesus was. And other people said they heard a voice which said, "This is my beloved Son, of whom I am well pleased." Then Jesus crossed the river Jordan and went into the wilderness. Jesus went into the wilderness to find find out what his work should be and to learn more about himself. There was not much to eat or drink in the wilderness. And one day, Jesus heard a voice, and it said, "Why don't you turn that stone over there into bread so that you can have something to eat?" And Jesus replied, "Man needs more than bread alone." Then he was transported to the top of the great temple in Jerusalem. And that same voice said, "Why don't you jump so that God will send his angels to catch you?" And Jesus replied, "God will not be tested in this way." Then Jesus saw a vision of all the kingdoms in the world. And that voice said, "If you follow me, I will make you king over all of this." And Jesus said, "I am meant to be a king, but not that kind of king." And then he crossed the river Jordan again and went back to do his work. But what was his work? Jesus' work was to come close to people who nobody else wanted to get close to. You can see he came very close to this blind man, so close that he touched his eyes with his hands. When Jesus touched people, they saw things they had never seen before, and they were able to do things they could never do before. Jesus made them well. The time came for Jesus to make his last trip to Jerusalem. He entered on a donkey, but the people greeted him putting palms down because they wanted him to be their king. He spent Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in the temple teaching others. He spent the nights on the Mount of Olives with his 12 disciples. On Thursday, the guards of the temple said to each other that they would arrest him that day. Jesus and the 12 hurried through the streets of Jerusalem to have dinner together. They entered a house and went to the upper room. There they had their dinner, and the temple guards could not find them. When everyone had eaten, Jesus took the bread and he gave thanks to God for it. And he broke the bread and said something like, "When you do this together, I will be with you." And with the wine, he took the wine and he thanked God for it. And he said to his disciples, "When you do this together, I will be with you." What did he mean? Jesus was often saying things they did not understand, but soon they would know. After dinner, Jesus went back to the Mount of Olives to pray, and after his prayers, Judas came and gave him a kiss on the cheek. That was a sign for the temple guards to arrest Jesus. They took Jesus away into the darkness, and the rest of the 12 disappeared into the night. Now this is a big story. We see all these faces of Jesus. There's a lot to think about. And we're stopping here. We know what happens on the next day. The next day is the day of the cross.